Hey everybody, it's Bruce here from WaterBear, the College of Music, and today we're going to talk about the 3 signs, the 3 things that indicate that your band is not going to make it. So before I tell you what those 3 things are, the important thing about this video is, acknowledging that, thinking about it, but also doing something about it. So it's that aspect of it that's important, because we want your band to be in the camp, the elite group of bands that do make it. And when you're chatting to bands, I mean, been doing this for 30 odd years with my own music and other people. And most of the time people come for advice and they're not really, well, I suppose this is what happens. You have to gauge how willing people are to listen and take constructive criticism. So you dance around the edges for a little bit, and you discover with most bands are not really, they want to tell you why it's fine, what they're doing. And that's quite hard, so you have to go with that. But today in this video, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you exactly how it is, and then it's up to you what you do about it. And before we get into this, there's another point I want to make. I'm always saying to people, the effort and time that you put into a band or a solo career is never wasted, because you pick up all these skills that'll stand you in good stead for the rest of your professional life. I mean, I was 23, perhaps 24 when Little Angel split up, and I used the stuff I learned back then every single day. And I'm 52 now nearly, and it's lifelong skills. But if you approach music like a hobby, this is the dangerous thing, because I've seen people spend their entire 20s or decades faffing around with something, learning nothing, and those years tick by and you look behind you and go, what was all that about? So we're going to approach this like professionals. This is professional music. So number 1, this is an indication that your band is not going to make it. And it is lack of pace. This is really easy to quantify and measure. If you think about what you've achieved in the last month and what you've done, and I'm talking about activity, building an audience and improving the quality of your music and the other stuff around it, your brand, your stuff, your products. So imagine your band, and your band's progress is on a graph. So we're going to start here, and we're going to end there, and that's 5 years away from now. So it's a good indication of whether you're going to have a career or not. If you haven't got it going in 5 years, then it might not be happening. So let's think, are we on track for where you want to be? Now, your definition of success is entirely up to you. So I'll give you a hypothetical one. We want to be able to tour the UK as a headline act and end up playing the O2 venue in Shepherd's Bush, which I think is about 2,000. So let's have that as our London show. Great, that's where we want to be, and we want to have a fan base of about 10,000 people. It's perfectly achievable for a good band. We might even be able to do it a bit quicker, but that's where we want to be in 5 years. So how can we tell that's going to happen without leaving it to chance? Well, we're here now, so let's work out what we've done in the last month. How much activity you've done, how much gigs, building an audience, improving the quality of your products, particularly the music, have you done in the last month? Okay, so multiply that by 12. That's the progress you're probably going to make in the year. Multiply that by 5. That's where you're going to end up. And for most bands, the trajectory is not that, it's that. And it adds up to 2 or 3 pub gigs a year, a little bit of Facebook, and that in a career, that's a hobby. So what do we do about it? I know it's kind of back a fag packet a little bit, but this very rough sort of equation stands up time and time and time again. Pace is what gets bands through. And the trouble is, there's a compound effect. So if you're a bit lazy this month, you have to do twice as much the following month. You have to do 4 times as much the month after that to catch up with the bands that are actually running it, with some ambition and some drive. So what do you do about it? This one's a toughie, because working with generations of musicians, I do think drive is something that's very hard to teach, because at the end of the day, I can't do this for you, can I? You have to do it yourself. Equally for you, you might be super driven, but you might have band members who aren't, who don't have this inbuilt sense of urgency. And if that's lacking and everyone's super chilled about the fact that we haven't done much this month, we've done 1 gig or no gigs, or written half a verse. If people think that somehow magically will materialise into a career, they are living in Walter Mitty land. It's not how it works, So what do you do about it? I suppose you've got to look at the band dynamic. You've got to have a very open band meeting, and you have to go, This is my career. I'm really serious about it. This is where I'm going to be. Unfortunately, everybody, we're going to be there with or without you. Who's in and who's out? At that point, it's really common for band members to talk a good game. So then you have to put in some very specific goals and split up the roles and responsibilities and just test everyone out over the next 3 months. If you haven't made significant progress in 3 months, that's enough time to really measure this stuff. And at that point, you have to make some hard decisions. These might be people that you're friends with, there might be people that you're close to, but you know, life's short and you can't afford years to go by with not making progress. That's okay, but not learning enough. That's the problem. So you've got to sort it out and you've got to have a team of people who mean business. And this could be a positive thing, because have you noticed how many bands are going from 5 or 6 members down to 1, 2 or 3 key people who drive the band? And perhaps some other people come for the tour, perhaps they don't. But bands are becoming smaller. All kinds of reasons for that, and this is one of them. Democracies are fine if they're functional, but often they're not. Number 2, the second sign that your band will not make it, and this is not listening. Specifically, not listening to the right people. When you're involved in music, everyone's got an opinion. And with social media, when bands are fairly small, everybody's generally being encouraging. Okay, so that's fine. But you've got to look around you, because this is a map. You know, music careers are pretty quantifiable. They're fairly easy to predict in some ways. You know, there's an established route to get from A to B. So you're there, we've already said you're there, you want to get there. So you need someone in your team who knows the route from A to B, who's already done it and done it fairly recently, and you need to listen to how they did it. Because otherwise it's like trying to drive to Scunthorpe without a map and without a sat-nav. You're probably going to end up in Burnley or something. So just take a look around you and your band. Who is it that's near you who's done the thing that you want to do fairly recently? Ideally there's 2 or 3 of these people, and are they helping you construct a plan? But it's all about having a plan to get from A to B rather than going round in circles. So you need a navigator. And when you've got that person, I mean, there's loads of great people that you can get a day's management consultancy. We've talked about some of these people and given out names and everything. And I chat to these guys. It's amazing how many bands come, pay the money and explain why the person who's giving the advice is wrong. It happens the majority of the time because the band wants to feel like everything's fine. So when you explain, oh yeah, it's fine because it doesn't work for us like that because we're, you know, it makes you feel better at the time, but it's a false sense of security. And you know, these people, they're just giving their opinion, but it's an informed opinion. And the thing that amazes me about bands is how readily they will take pub talk as advice, and usually it's stuff that just makes you feel better at the time. And the people that are your friends in the music business will be challenging you and pushing you. Most bands don't like it, so they don't listen, and the consequence is they don't make it. And I've saved the best for last. So the third sign that your band isn't going to make it is not knowing what a good song is. Now let's pause and think about what I'm saying here, because everyone goes, yeah, of course I do. Well, you do when you're a consumer. You tend to buy good records, you buy cool stuff, because it takes a lot for us to go to a gig, put our hand in our pocket, you know, actually buy music as a consumer. We tend to get that bit right. We don't apply the same standards to our own bands. And here's the problem. Well, it's 2 problems, I suppose. If you can play, and if you can sing, you can make fairly average material sound really good. And at that point, because you've created it, you tend to lack objectivity about how good it is. And coming from a different era of the music industry, when I was in my 20s, there'd be a whole team of A&R people kicking our ass to say, you haven't got a single, this isn't good enough, go back, do more writing. And if we got it wrong, you had one day to live or die. Your career lived or died on the Radio 1 playlist meeting on a Monday morning. If you didn't get on the radio, didn't matter what you thought, career was over. So we don't have that kind of gatekeeper aspect of the music business anymore in terms of songwriting quality. So bands put out generally whatever they like, and no one's there pushing them, kicking their ass. They are at a higher level still. This is why the world's biggest artists are in that position, because they've got an inbuilt sense of quality. So what we're talking about is not a good song. That's no use to you. A bunch of good songs is no use to you whatsoever. What you need is a career-defining song. In old money, we'd call it a hit record. You know, that's what you need to pop you out of these hundreds of bands and solo artists into that area of being a real contender. And here's some examples. And you can think of loads of your own. And that's what you need. You need a song that hits the nail on the head, that is 3 minutes of pure genius, that tells the world where you've been, where you're coming from, and what you're all about, and also speaks for an audience. That's your role as an artist. It's understanding the difference between craft, which is sounding good, and art, which is saying something. People who understand that difference and how to put that into a song, they're the ones that get through. So how do we check how good your songs are? Well, again, it comes to who you've got in your team. You need to find someone who's had a bunch of hit records or big records, got on the radio fairly recently, and sit down with them and go through those songs and see if you can weed out the ones that are not going to make it. If you've got songs that have got potential, see how far you can take them, and then also do a stack of co-writing. So I would say co-write with young artists for vibe, inexperienced people, but also be writing with people who've delivered, who understand the difference between a good song and a hit song, a career-defining song. And it's easy to find these people. We've all got the internet, you've all got a phone. Just track them down. There'll be some in your hometown. I mean, you know, there still is a top 40. That means there's 40 hit records week in, week out. The people that are writing this stuff are around. And generally, you can track them down, organise a co-write. Sometimes they charge a little bit of money, and sometimes it's good for them to be writing with new artists. It's amazing what you can do with a little bit of focus. So, thinking about it, I suppose the point of this video is to get people around you who know how this stuff works and can push you, but also support you. Because at the end of the day, it's you that has to make the creative decisions. You're the artist, it's your life, it's your career. But you do need those people around who can mentor you and support you, and I suppose that's why we set up WaterBear. So if music's becoming a very serious part of your life, then you can come and study with us, online, on site, in the heart of Brighton, or a mixture of the two. You can do a degree or you can do a master's, so drop us a line here. We'll be very happy to talk to you about your music and your career.